How big would you say wellness is in your life?
It's huge. And one of the reasons why I decided to stay the course and move to Seattle.
Mental Health Monday.
Mental Health Monday. Wow, bookie, you'll take this ticket. It's kind of a vicious culture.
Yeah, it's vicious. It's not like this in Seattle. People's uncles getting commission off these.
I mean, the city makes a lot of money.
Yeah.
A lot of money off the tickets. I forgot what article was, but I think it was like right before 2020. There was like an article that came out that said like DC made like, I think it was like 100 million or something like that just off tickets alone.
That's crazy.
And I was like, yo, when you think of the square foot of how small this city is, how many people paid that? And I'm just like, oh, nah, baby, no. Anyway, that's crazy when you think about it.
Yeah.
Hey, what's up, homies? Welcome back to another episode of Mental Health Monday here with my homie Priscilla. What up, girl?
What up?
Chilling. How you doing? Yeah, I'm happy you pulled up.
Yeah.
Happy you made time.
Yeah.
I appreciate you.
Back home from Seattle for a little bit.
Okay.
Good to be back.
How's it been? How's home been for you?
It's been good.
Okay.
Black people.
Okay. You know, we are everywhere. We everywhere.
Yeah, I think you gotta take for granted until, you're in a place that
Gray clouds and, great people, just a little bit, but community.
Yes.
You got community. Got community, which is important. So within your travels, what would you say was the biggest thing that was eye-opening for you as a writer?
Traveling has just provided me a change of perspective for sure. Like just like seeing how other people live, how various like communities celebrate youth culture, how it's reflected, various art forms.
Yeah. And for you, I think your story to me is fascinating, which I don't know well, because when I went through your website and I was just like touching on a couple of things here and there,
I would need to update because there's a lot.
I could only imagine you're one of the cases where I think it would be naive for me to be like, I know your story because I read a website, and it's like, nah, ask questions, like allow yourself to like, oh, I didn't know that. That's dope as hell. What could I learn from that? And then when it comes to the mental health space, I don't know if you looked at like a lot of the work that I'm doing now. I'm very much so like, so for the professional person, what does wellness or mental health look like when it comes to their profession? So like for you as a writer, it's like being a writer is like being an artist.
So I am a writer. Like that is like my work.
Yeah.
At the end of the day.
Yeah.
But what I currently get paid to do, or as my 9-to-5 profession, and why I no longer live in DC currently, is I actually work at Brooks, the running shoe company, based in Seattle.
So that's what that was about.
So that's what's taking me away from.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I've been at Brooks for now going on 3 years. It'll be 3 years in December, and I started working there during the pandemic. I've always loved running. Like running actually has been a source of community and a mental health outlet for me. I first started running after a breakup in New York. It was a way for me to just like reground myself after that time, have clarity of thought. It's also a time when a lot of my creative ideas tend to come to me, is when I've like silenced out everything else and I'm just able to focus in on my breath, running, and a good playlist.
Those moments come to me like 20 minutes before I go to sleep. And it's the worst because I'm just like, I'm not going to get it.
Yeah.
I start writing it out.
Yeah.
Like 3 hours later, I'm looking at the sun come up and it's like, you got to let it go.
Yeah. So, yeah, I actually, it's almost like a full circle moment for me working at Brooks. So,
How so?
I worked at Health Magazine out of college, like a few years out of college. So
always passionate about health, or was it just like, this is a magazine?
This was an end to the publishing industry.
Okay.
So went to Temple, studied journalism and theater.
What year did you go to Temple?
I graduated in 2013.
Okay, that was right after. I used to go back and forth to Temple. I dated someone who was at Temple till like 2010.
Yeah.
Temple's lit.
Temple is lit. It's a minute.
The folks
lit.
that you're friends with and what they're doing.
Exactly.
It's a different experience for everybody.
Yeah. I wouldn't say this to someone who went to an HBCU, but it definitely takes on some flavors of that, an experience that I did not have. So I won't ever compare it to an HBCU, but it definitely takes on some of the flavors.
That's interesting overlap. So where are you from originally?
I'm from here. Yeah, born and raised.
What part?
Northeast. So I grew up by Brooklyn Catholic University.
Where I went to school.
Yep.
Yes, right beside you.
Yep.
And then, okay, that's funny because our overlap is I was going back and forth to Philly from 2008 until the end of 2012.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's okay. All right, cool. Tell me more.
Yeah. So after I graduated from Temple, it was always the dream to live in New York. I remember one moment, maybe around my sophomore, junior year. It was a frustrating year. There was a lot going on during that time. Grandmother had passed away, and I remember finding remember when Megabus had those dollar things? So I got a $1 ticket up to New York, literally looked at the New York Times building. Because for me, sometimes I just need to visualize what I'm manifesting. So I was went up to New York and just intentionally to just lay eyes on the New York Times and to openly manifest where I wanted to be next in life post graduating. So after I graduated, I moved up to New York, stayed at one of my mom's friends' mother's homes in Brooklyn. The aunties, stay with them. They took great care of me. Had an internship at Essence magazine. Essence was always the dream.
What year was that?
This was 2013. So this is right after I graduated.
So did you always make sure to line your dreams up no matter what? Hey, I'm going to get my foot in the door.
Yeah. And my fire sign.
Okay.
By any means necessary.
Okay.
It's hard for me to leave somewhere until the mission has been accomplished.
Okay.
So I
at
Essence. So I still remember my first day of that internship, what I had on and everything. I had on this pleated color block dress that my mom picked out for me. These patent leather pumps that I still have to this day, that are very special to me because they carried me through a lot of interviews. Okay. So pumped on in with the class of 2013 interns, all of these people that I had seen on the Essence masthead for years were finally just patent leathers within. Yeah. So walked into the room. It's Bill Wilburkin. It is Corey Murray. It is just all of these editors that I had just read all of their bylines for years were there. And I just remember being starstruck. Speechless, oh my gosh. I had on my glasses at the time, and I was the business intern. And so I did a lot of research for that section. Miss Sykes, she took me under her wings and really mentored me in terms of how to do research, how to do market research on various products and that sort of thing that would go in book. And then once the internship was over, she walked my papers, quote unquote, to the beauty editor. And there was an opportunity for a contract sort of role. So did that for a second. That ended. Then went to a brand outside of the beautiful Essence loving auntie glowed up Black woman environment, shea butter, environment. Yeah, all the smells. So went to dailycandy.com to know more, but
how was that experience for you?
I was it was my first time being the only in a space post college. So was that different? I was oh, okay. This is my first taste of this. The way they move, the language, everything else. The clicks, At Essence, I was used to, hey girl, da, 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 how was your weekend? Just a hug, a more embracing sort of environment, a warmer environment. And then I got to Daily Candy. It was just like, no good morning. How was your weekend? People going off to lunch, no invite. And it was very cold, sterile, and weird. So there I was a photo researcher. So researching just like where the product image came from, could I go on the site, adding like credits to it. I think I was being paid like maybe like $15 an hour, like just trying to make it work in New York. So
what your wage was before at Essence?
At Essence, how much was I making as an intern? So low. I think I was making like $12 an hour. I was also working at Levi's.
Okay.
So Levi's sort of carried me through these super underpaid jobs in New York. So Daily Candy, I think I was making like $14 an hour. That lasted for like 3 months, got let go. It's in Soho. Walked down the street. I remember it's like dramatic. So it was like a rainy day. I think I went to the library around the corner first. Like was applying to jobs, like dramatically, like looking up jobs. I was like, the mission isn't complete. Can't leave New York. Where's another job? So I walk down the street, go to Levi's, tell them, hey, I worked at Levi's in college. Do you have any openings? They immediately took my resume, started working there, maybe like a week later, worked there for a few months. It was enough to sort of pay my rent because I had moved out of the apartment with the aunties and now had to pay I think I was paying no more than $1,000 for my room in like a 4-bedroom apartment.
Back in the day in New York, would that be considered a lot or just enough? Rent-wise?
That was... New York has always been expensive, but obviously it was particularly expensive for somebody who's making minimum wage. So I made it work and grateful for my parents. They supported me a little bit in that process and just pulled out the patent leather shoes, updated my resume, made my way back in the door at Time Inc. and literally interviewed at like People magazine. I think I interviewed at what other titles? All You, Health magazine.
This is some classics.
So
yeah,
got in the door at Health magazine, was an editorial intern there to Rosalind Frazier. Rosalind Frazier is extremely special to my running journey. She inspired me. Amazing Black woman who's ran like, I don't even know how many marathons at this point, but has ran mad marathons. She gave me some tough love during that time of just like mentoring me and coaching me through my writing and pitching in rooms. We used to have like these morning pitching meetings where we would go around in a circle and like pitch ideas.
What would you say were 3 lessons that she gave you that you take with you to this day?
Pay attention to detail. Take your time.
Okay.
It's okay.
Okay. Oh, so it's okay. It's the third one.
It's okay to take your time.
Okay.
It's okay. Yeah. Attention and detail. Take your time. So those are definitely things that I take with me to this day. Just like reading things over a few times. Few times before I send to anyone versus like send.
Do you think that plays into your credibility as a writer?
For sure. So after Health magazine and that time, I then got an opportunity at BET. So my cousin is also very significant to my time in New York. My cousin is like OG hip hop, and she worked at Vibe back in the day, and she had a lot of connects at BET. So got an opportunity to work at BET, worked there for about 2 years. And then after BET, or during my time at BET, worked at the BET Awards, Took my first work trip to LA, which was a lot of fun. We're dead.
Inspired you to go to LA, or were you already inspired to go to LA prior to that?
I mean, I had gone to LA before that trip, or Anaheim, like wherever Disneyland is. Yeah, I have gone to Disneyland with the family before, but yeah, LA was cool. It was cool to see it from like a work perspective, an industry perspective at that age. Yeah. Yeah. So I got to go out to LA like twice during my time. I did the Soul Train Awards in Vegas, which were always a lot of fun. It was a huge shift from being in that cold, sterile environment that was daily candy to then being back in an environment that felt like family, functional family, but nonetheless family.
So would you say looking for work environments, you're usually like, hey, do you guys have a warm template?
I do like that. I do like a warm template because that makes me feel like I have room. There's room enough for my voice. I can, speak up. I can share ideas. It's hard to read a space and hard to figure out who's in your corner if everyone's silent and no one's even doing the most baseline thing of saying hello to you in the morning.
Yeah. And I mean, will you consider code switching, having to keep up with like not just the lingo, but like the in-between language? Learning to read rooms is kind of tiring when you're in the middle of doing your job and doing that correctly.
Yeah, it is. It's extremely exhausting. But I'm older now. I'm 32. I was just getting started in my career journey. I think I was probably like 23, 24, 25, working in these sort of spaces. So
do you think you transition from, all right, I got to run to the next opportunity, and you started to slowly transition into, all right, I need to plan for the next opportunity, and how do I want that to feel for me?
Yeah. So, funny thing, when I was at Health Magazine, an opportunity, since before BT, I'm getting my like timelines mixed up.
That's what it means to be seasoned.
Oh, yes. Okay. So,
When I was
at BET, I got an email. This was in 2016, I think. So got an email while I was at BET, like, hey, would you like to come back and work at Essence? We have a full-time opportunity for you to be a digital content producer. So I was working with both the editorial team as well as the Essence Festival team and like the Scrum team, which is sort of like just the ins and outs of how the site works and new updates and the IT stuff going on with the site. So updating the site every day with like news stories, new pieces going up, attended editorial meetings, that sort of thing. So I was happy to be back at Essence. So I had fulfilled the dream, the purpose of coming to New York in the first place. So
was that a full circle moment for you?
Very much so. Coming of age, full circle moment, feel that.
You could still drink your coffee. I know you don't want it to be
It's okay. It's sponsorship. Yeah. Okay.
All right, cool.
So after my time at Essence, and the reason why I came to a close is because they were selling.
Okay.
So I was like, what do I do? Is my time up in New York? This has been a good, solid run coming back to Essence, and now it's like in this weird space. Timing was literally being sold to the Meredith Corporation, which is an extremely conservative publishing house.
Okay, so
it was during the Trump era.
Okay.
It was literally like all the time he'd sign it. It was extremely triggering for me. Someone who had like spent some dedicated hours like pumping into each of those like publications trying to even land a job.
And also hoping someone would protect the dream when you're gone.
Exactly. Yeah. So had to pivot. So left Essence and worked at this startup. Won't even name the startup, but it was crazy. Startup folds 3 months in. I feel like I've had to like, I've had to be the hero.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
So a lot of demand, a lot of like playing several different, that's a lot on like, having to wear lots of different hats, all sorts of things. So after that chapter closed, just like, you know what? Gone to Essence twice, both as an intern, full-time employee, actually 3 times really. So intern, contract position, full-time role. And I've had a 5-year run in New York, solid community. I've launched Black and Lit in New York, which was a networking hub for Black young professionals. I wanted a space. This was in 2016. This is when I was about to exit BET. And it was at a moment. There was a moment when I was at my desk. I was assigned the show, and I really didn't want to work on the show.
Okay.
This is stupid. I hate to go on with something else, So I was like, Black and Lit. At the time, Lit was like, we were using Lit. You wore that word out.
Yes.
So I was like, Black and Lit. So Black and Lit started at my desk. Another coworker at the time, she created the logo. My good work brothers, Nick, Juan, and Chuck, they helped me like plant the seeds for Black and Lit in New York through a few events at this really cool bar in Brooklyn. And then when it was time to leave New York, brought that back home to DC. I was like, while I'm in DC, I want to be intentional about telling our stories.
Yeah.
I want to tell the people's story here. Like I've spent 5 years like planting seeds in New York and growing my craft and learning from like some of the greatest people in the industry and all of that. So came back home to DC with that intention. One of my good girlfriends, Jasmine, she's like a food publicist, extraordinaire, just very excellent, perfectionist, but just like super sharp. So she had all of these connections in DC in terms of just like various restaurants and venues to like host events at. So we started hosting events. We had our first event at Hill Prince, and I think this was in like 2018 we had our first event.
And ironically, Hill Prince is the 4th place I did a mental health outreach event at DC.
Oh, cool. Yeah. They've created a nice space in the back to do a lot of things.
Yeah, I want to say they just built out the back. So and like out there, lunch and everything else.
Yeah. So we had our first event the summer of 2018. At the time, when I came back home, I was actually working at Makedo. So I was working at Makedo, and I was also living with my parents. Very humbling experience, to be honest.
Going from
New York,
so
you have this shiny thing going on in your life. You have, I work at Essence.
You're the shiny thing.
Yeah.
For everybody. Yeah.
I work at Essence. And then you no longer have that quote unquote trophy or that shiny thing, that career thing that sort of is a draw.
How were your parents though during that time when you were back home?
They were very supportive.
Okay.
Parents were supportive, They've always been supportive and only wanted the best for me in my career. So
the reason I ask is because you and I know parents aren't usually like that. They're supportive, but the way parents are supportive is they're supportive as long as you're getting money. And you're not in the way of what they think you should be doing, depending on whose parents they are. Like my parents are like that. I'm like, no, guys.
I was making, money as a server.
Bills.
I was paying my bills.
Yeah.
Makedo was a great time, honestly.
And it's a great hub.
It's a great hub.
Yeah.
Like coming back home and working at Makedo was honestly one of the best things that I could have done at that point in time in my life.
Yeah.
Got to be connected with so many creatives around the city. REM and Yodi are 2 of my best friends. Ariam worked at Maketto with me. Lauren was one of the managers. Keen was one of the managers. Tally, Cool Kids Vinyl. So many people that I'm not even like naming, but we all are connected to this day. Jamal Davies. Yeah.
What continues the Maketto brand is the videographer and one of the managers for Chris Pirate is actually the manager of Maketto now.
Wow.
Yeah. So when you said that, I was like, that doesn't surprise me at all.
Yeah. Yeah. So Maketto was great. I think I was there for a solid year.
How was your time in DC outside of doing events? Because I think when people think of your time in a place, they think of when you're doing the events. Mm-hmm. But you and I know the production work, meetings, collaborations, promises that are dropped and picked up. That's like the important times that goes into things we do.
Yeah. My time in DC was everything that I needed at the time. It was very grounding. I had quick access to community. I was able to create things with Black and Lit. We had a podcast outside of our events. So we did a podcast out of the Line Hotel on Wednesdays.
After they built the Line.
Yeah, after they...
like the hotel and that space.
Yep, yeah. Okay. So we had a podcast out of that. And then, I was just able to pull up and support people, which was super exciting. And not only support people, I was pitching people left and right.
Yeah.
Like I was writing heavy for the Washington Post at the time. They had a Ideal Day in DC section. So gave a lot of people an opportunity to be in the posts, which was cool. So that was really special during my time here, as well as interviewing a lot of people on the podcast that Jasmine and I had.
Did you ever get interview fatigue?
Like interviewing people fatigue?
Yeah. Like I think
but
of like 4 people in a day. I could do 4 people, but there's something that's missing for me from the 4th interview of the day.
Yeah.
But I'm also talking about interviews that could last like 2.5 hours.
Oh no, we were only doing 1 hour long interview once a week. So
yeah. No, I got you.
Yeah.
Okay. Would you say there was something? What was valuable about the podcasting space at the Line Hotel? The reason I asked that question is when the factory was doing their show out of there,
those are my guys.
On like, hey, pull up juice, velvet, this all your stuff. And I was always like, I love this.
It was family. It's family. And it was a safe space. I don't know. When we stepped into that room, not only was it a safe space, that word gets used often, but it really was for Jasmine and I, as well as the person who we were interviewing. Like people who we had only had one pre-interview with over the phone were opening up to us, and we felt like we could open up and share bits and pieces of ourselves as well. It was extremely therapeutic. I think we were both at interesting points in our careers at the time. I was working at a place, I won't name it, but I was working at a place that was extremely toxic. And she was also working somewhere where, it was a toxic work sort of space for her. So that was just a space that both empowered us, empowered our voice, and was therapeutic. Like, hey,
it was a good filter for the experience.
Yeah. So, that space was special.
And then in between that time of when you started your journey until this point, how were you able to maintain such drive and positivity?
You mean like starting
your journey as a writer and going to all these publishings and doing all this work and being confident in who you are as you handle the work?
I think it is my work at the end of the day. So like the motivation comes from, I love telling someone, hey, the Washington Post okayed me to interview you, and their response to that. I love giving the person who often hasn't had that opportunity to be interviewed or that spotlight, a platform for their voice to be heard. That's one of the most important things to be, like it's just as important or as special to me to interview a celebrity as it is for me to interview a community hero. Like giving that person who is doing the work in their community or in their particular sphere is very special to me, and that definitely, you know, empowers me, makes me feel confident and continuing to like do this even during like drier seasons. Like this last year has definitely been a more challenging year for me writing wise, like just like slower responses from editors, especially coming off of 2022. I was getting hits after hit, week after week. Like in a month, I was publishing maybe like 2-3 articles. I had the Washington Post on lock. I had gotten an opportunity at the Atlantic, which was a dream. I had, you know, cracked open some new publications like Fast Company and Architectural Digest and Dwell. So this year, I had to extend grace to myself. So, and also exhibit patience. So I moved to a whole new city that is completely different from DC.
Was that a whim, or I'm drawn to what I may be able to create here?
I moved because I wanted to stay the course career-wise for work. So work at Brooks, the running shoe company, and they're based in Seattle. Started there during the pandemic. And they're like, hey, once the office opens, you have to move out here. So moved out there. And I don't necessarily think that that's why things slowed up writing-wise, because there are pieces that I've written that are not necessarily tied specifically to DC. They're perhaps a bit more evergreen or just like regionally relevant. So yeah, it's just been a slower year. I don't know if freelance budgets have like slowed down a bit. A lot of editors have shifted roles. Like I literally just left a meeting with my former editor at the Washington Post, and she just like poured into my cup and like encouraged me. It gave me some cleaners and people to reach out to and whatnot, and taps on my shoulder who I've been trying to like reach out to and whatnot. So
do you mind if I make a statement on what's going on right now business-wise?
Mm-hmm.
So newspapers and social media are tied hand in hand, especially when it comes to the publishing business, whether people want to acknowledge it or not. Because a lot of folks are like, well, with social media and everything else that's happening, everything that's publishing is dying. And it's like, no, guys, it's just a conversation starts there and ends up there. And then the reaction you guys have goes from here, and then it ends up in the publishing. That's how it works, right? And there's something to be said about the amount of AdSense that has slowed down when it comes to social media, like Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and how much people are not getting paid in AdSense. So there's this one channel that I follow called Wine and Chill. This was her first time being a YouTuber. And she was letting us know, hey, I made like $93,000 last year in YouTube. First time, retired lawyer. She used to be in the entertainment industry in New York. She's done stuff for Bad Boys and a couple other establishments. Worked in tech, didn't go well in tech. They wanted her to be it was called a diversity something. They didn't want the diversity they were asking for. And she was like, hey, this is how much I made in AdSense and sponsorships, and this is how much I'm making now. The work hasn't changed. It's just the less amount. And I think when I did the math on what she got paid in AdSense alone, it was cut by 4/5. And I was like, okay, so if this is how much money she's no longer getting, and she went from like 93 to about 52, I was like, okay, I could imagine how much less budgets there are to go around, because at the end of the day, advertisers technically keep the market going. And if they don't feel there's a value, or they're afraid they're not going to make back what they would spend plus more, then a lot of people just naturally aren't going to have budgets, because everyone always has to deal with another business, whether they say it's our face or not. So you not getting calls, and I don't know if you view business this way, but for me, when I started the production company and stuff we did in 2018, I was very much like, I wanted to tell stories. At Velvet, I wanted to create a platform for DJs, because the DJs had such great stories of, I've traveled, I've been to these countries, I've made these checks, I've done work with these people. And I was like, why aren't you guys being advertised correctly? But then I came to realize that some DJs just don't want to be known. They don't want people to know their story, or they want to go through the process of, I tell you my story and you pitch my story to someone in the public. And however big you make the story, that's the limit to how big my story should be. And it's like, guys, only you can control your narrative. I'm just covering 5 minutes of your years and years of life and putting it on tape. So, and then now I'm here in the mental health space. And like, I think the most important thing you can do when it comes to mental health and wellness space, or someone who's running a business, is understanding how much money is in the market and how much money is not in the market. Because you tend to figure out, oh, I may not be positioned well for the thing that I'm doing. So like, for example, I do business in DC and I've done business in Philly and New York when it comes to mental health outreach with the work that we've done. But I'm not positioned to be paid in DC, which is what I have to position better on paper when it comes to like, where's the LLC registered? What certs do you have? So when the government opens up their millions and millions of funds, even though you do all this community outreach, are you positioned to get paid by the right people? So like, that's what we're working on now. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, it's definitely, it definitely has a lot to do with like ad dollars and social media for sure.
Yeah.
And maybe Chat GPT.
I mean, definitely. That's when that hit the market, I was like,
no, this just doesn't sit right with me as a writer.
You guys are really trying to figure out how to get rid of jobs, but it's under the cloak and the guise of, we're making your life easier, right? But the thing about Chat GPT is you need someone to maintain that. So the jobs that you lose are the writers, but then it's like, that's why you see so many people going to tech. Because it's like, look, if the tech is going to get rid of our jobs, I'm going to go into tech. But then it's like, if tech isn't your passion, then you're technically getting paid for something that's eating away at what your passion was.
Exactly.
Yeah. So like, how do you manage that? It's not a reality, but how do you manage the feeling of, why is the world working against what we've produced? Do you ever feel that way? I
do feel that way.
Because I don't want to put words in your mouth if that's not the feeling.
I do somewhat feel that way. So, funny enough, my brother works at OpenAI and was a part of the founding team for ChatGPT. So I got to hear a lot of things before it dropped.
You saw the excitement.
I saw the excitement.
Yeah.
Firsthand. So
did you think of how it would affect you at that time when you were like getting updates about what you were working on?
The idea of just putting, a few words in and writing an essay for you, that definitely raises a flag for me.
Yeah. And some of the essays are well written.
Yeah.
It's not bad work.
It's an extremely smart system.
Yeah.
And it concerns me about, like, what does that look like for the future of the publishing industry, writing, and that sort of thing.
Especially with what's going on with the protests that just ended like a week ago or something like that. No, 2 days ago.
There's the Writers Guild. Yeah.
And then there's another guild that started protesting like a month ago. And the Writers Guild said, yeah, we agree to go back to work, but you have to take care of this guild too. It was the Writers Guild, and then there was like another guild that followed up. But
all in LA, like all the writers are in strike right now. Basically.
Has that been interesting, witnessing that up close as a writer yourself?
Yeah.
Are you a part of the Writers Guild?
No, I'm not. Actually. I'm not.
So that's like a different section of.
It's mostly like those are mostly film writers who are part of the Writers Guild.
Is there a guild for writers who are just writers and not film writers?
Like I can be a part of the Writers Guild if I wanted to, which could be a good thing for me to look into if I had an agent or something like that. But I'm strictly freelance writer. I'm currently pitching everything myself. by myself versus like having an agent represent me and quote unquote walk my papers to a publication and be like, hey, Priscilla would be great to write this cover story because she's interviewed such and such person in the past and for this publication.
What's the weight that comes with that, being a freelance writer who has to pitch everything themselves, being the main talking piece for a lot of magic?
Yeah. It's a lot of work, a lot of rejections for sure. More rejection and more no emails back than accepted pitches. That's for sure. I would say that I pitch probably like 2 stories a week. And I'll hear back about maybe 1, if that, because it takes time.
Yeah.
It takes time. And I feel like a lot of times they're using staff writers or people internally to write these sort of stories versus necessarily having freelancers. Some publications have more of a freelance budget because they've let go more of their staff writers because they don't want to have to pay for benefits and all of that stuff. So,
which is ridiculous.
Like having a freelance writer who you're paying like a couple $100s to write an article is pretty easy because you don't have to go through all the ins and outs of benefits.
I feel like the system makes you inclined to not have to be loyal to these companies.
Yeah, and it also doesn't encourage someone to be a full-time writer.
Yeah.
It encourages, there's a lot of privilege wrapped up in this industry. More often than not, you're going to have another job to support being a writer.
Which is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because
when writing is a full-time job and it needs to have way more respect than what it does.
Especially with just the standard itself of writing.
Yeah. The time it takes to, reach out to people, set up interviews, transcribe interviews, edit, all of that is more than just a labor of love. It takes time.
Yeah, but you should also be paid for love.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, especially if there's labor in the name.
Yeah, exactly.
How have you built up such resilience over the years, especially watching the ebb and flow of the industry?
Probably because it's just what excites me. Yeah, it's what excites me. It's what I'm most passionate about. It's seeing our stories.
Your face,
it's a lot of fun.
Stories.
It's the thing that I would do if no one is paying me to do. I'll interview someone in a heartbeat. So, yeah, it's very important to me to see people's stories told, especially from here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I want to double back to 2 points. And I think this is like very important because a lot of folks make the assumption of this amazing event just happened out of the blue by itself and the right people were there. When it came to going from New York to DC, what was the importance of the event that you put together? And why do you think the people here needed to be highlighted?
Black and Lit created community in very particular ways at 2 different points in my life. So in New York, when Black and Lit was created, I was searching for spaces where I didn't have to necessarily lead with what it is that I do. It was just like good people, all potentially creatives or, adjacent to creative industries, doing cool things, who wanted to collaborate and meet each other in a space where you didn't have to be like on some industry clout or whatever. You could just be yourself, be authentically yourself. So that's what it served for me in New York. And then in DC, it served as a way to get to know people here in a changing city, coming back to the city after like being away at school and then in New York for 5 years. So I was away from the city for 9 years between being in Philly and then in New York for 5. So that space allowed both Jasmine and I to find a footing in community here.
Real community.
Not
just a word.
Get to know new people. It gave us the opportunity to interview people. So it was a bridge builder for us.
Okay.
In DC for sure.
Have you seen, I don't think you were planting seeds for new opportunities, but did new opportunities bloom from that?
I would say new opportunities bloomed out of Maquetto, honestly.
Okay.
Like Eric came to me and asked me if I wanted to do an event, a Black and Lit event at the Line Hotel. At the time he had brothers and sisters. Mm-hmm. So we threw our first, one of like maybe our second or third event at the Line Hotel. And then the man who was the producer of the radio show happened to like see our event and asked us if we wanted to have a radio show at the Line Hotel. So that opportunity came from being in the right place at the right time.
That man is a sniper. He's got some good folks.
Yeah.
I've heard about him in like 3 stories and I'm like, man, this man don't miss.
Yeah. So Jack asked us if we wanted to have a radio show. So had a radio show at the Line Hotel out of that. And we were on a run for a solid year of interviewing people.
And the Line Hotel has a sister location in New York.
The Line Hotel has a sister location. They're all over the Line Hotel. So they have location in Austin, LA. The Line Hotel is like everywhere. But yeah, we were there week in and week out doing our show. Super excited. And our last show was in March 2020. So our last interview was with Dominic Adams from Somewhere. That was it. And then, so Jasmine and I lived together. So we lived together on Capitol Hill in this really cool, like, converted schoolhouse loft. And we had, we took a pivot and figured out, like, everyone how to do some of what we were doing from our home. Yeah. So we did this series called The Check-In. We would check in with various people from our Black and Lit community and just do like brief interviews with people, follow-up interviews with people we had previously interviewed about, you know, how they were doing during that time and how they had like pivoted their business. And all of that. We had a lot of fun making it work. Fun.
Yeah, adapting.
We adapted.
Yeah.
We adapted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Would you say, how big would you say wellness is in your life?
It's huge. And one of the reasons why I decided to stay the course and move to Seattle for work. So I work at Brooks, running shoe company, and my quality... Actually, I won't say quality of life. My work-life balance is at its best right now. So I don't come home from work stressed. And I also have time to take care of me, quality time to take care of me. Okay. So I work out 4 times a week. At Brooks, the company culture, we have like time on Wednesdays where our calendars are blocked to go for a run or a walk. I'm done with my workday around like 4 when I'm on the West Coast. So I have like my whole evening to do what I need to do. I'm not micromanaged. I have an amazing manager who really supports me. It's a hard place to leave when you have all these things. You feel good. When you wake up and you feel good. Yeah. Like I've worked places where I feel sick. Like I can't sleep at night. Yeah. I'm taking melatonin, drinking a glass of wine. Which is just to go to sleep. Yeah. Like that's crazy. Yeah. Like I can't live like that. I felt unhealthy and unwell. So feeling well at work is important to me. Like this is but one facet of my life. It's not, I'm not the work. I'm not Brooks. It's just a piece of what I do to make ends meet. And it just so happens to be something that I also enjoy.
I'm going to ask you 2 more questions.
Of course.
Yeah. All right. Let's talk about the company of Brooks.
Brooks, yeah.
And their work culture. Do you think other companies would benefit from adapting how they run their work culture?
For sure. Like, even lunchtime at Brooks, like other companies, I'm used to having to bring my lunch to my desk, eat it, respond, or like be nervous that I took like over 30 minutes or an hour for my lunch break. Here, we have free lunch at work, and we're all sitting down like we're at summer camp and like leisurely enjoying lunch for the most part.
Yeah.
Not to say we're all busy, like I'm busy, but like
It's still a part
we're
of the
able to like
culture.
pause.
Yeah. Really pause.
Really pause.
Yeah, and recharge your battery.
And recharge and sit and talk about a weekend activity or what we're watching, or just like laugh at something funny, you know? Everyone isn't just like, you know, where's that email? Following up on such and such. Like,
Yeah.
it's a little bit more laid back.
Yeah.
Like, people understand that, you know, if it's not done by 4, we can always come back to it tomorrow. Unless it's something urgent, obviously. But more often than not, it can wait until tomorrow.
Yeah. So the reason I asked you that question is I have like 2 to 3 side projects that are going into next year. And I've learned from my mistakes, hey, anything that's a project deserves its own cutout of time completely and plan. So as someone who's been a part of the industry for 10 years between running Velvet Lounge and a couple other establishments, I've always wondered what would it look like to have more wellness and mental health in that space. And I've always considered, is the business in the way of mental health and wellness, and what does it look like to roll certain things back that this industry is used to, and how would you approach that? So like working on things like doing interview with 4 restaurant owners that I'm working on right now, depicting their food, their struggle to start the business, what did it take to bring that to life, and how do they take care of themselves, whether they're taking care of themselves or not. And then spinning the block a year later, being patient with that year later and saying, hey, would you be open to applying that to your business? Why and why not? You could talk about that on camera if you want to, but I'm curious to see, like, with everyone who's like, we need more mental health and wellness, I think that there's this unrealistic disconnect of how much is the business standing in the way and how much is there are certain things that need to be implemented to keep the business going. Because if the business doesn't happen, this conversation doesn't matter anyway.
Yeah.
And when I hear stories like this, I'm like, should I hit Brooks up? Should I be like, hey, is there a team I can talk to?
Yeah.
How much do you guys make, if you don't mind me asking, and what is your business model? And are there other business models here on the East Coast or in DC that it's like, look, you guys have the exact same business model, culture of people. If you apply this, you may either see better points in production or better points in turnover in terms of people are less willing to leave your company because it's ran with not only such efficiency, but so much more consideration to the person you've hired.
Yeah. I think that no company is perfect.
Of course.
And Brooks is in no stretch.
Yeah.
Far from it.
Yeah.
Like, there are plenty of things that I could nitpick. It just happens to work for me and my mental health right now. But I think a lot of it has to do with organizational things that are put in place, because I've worked at places where it constantly feels like we're remixing processes all the time.
Yeah.
Brooks has a very clear, for the most part, process. Like, there's a way that meetings are organized and ran. There are, you know, checks and balances. There's like a RACI. So a RACI is like, who's responsible for the project, who should be accountable, who should be on like the consideration or informed category for a project. So everyone has an understanding of how things are run. And when you have that clarity, it creates more freedom so that you're not feeling anxious all the time about, oh my gosh, I didn't do such and such. It's like, okay, it's clearly right here. Like, it's outlined. It's not a lot of like chaotic stuff happening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Would you say I may have one more question for you, but to me, this is fascinating because like you're the first person to bring me closer to an example of, hey, this can work. But when something is successful, I'm not focused on the success of, hey, we pulled this off. I'm usually focused on, all right, what's the process? What kind of environment is it in? And why is this here?
Yeah.
That makes sense?
Yeah.
Because like sometimes you walk into something, you're like, of course this is here. No, it's not of course. Something happened for this to want to be a thing. So when it came to the culture, is that what attracted you to the culture? Or did you come there and you were like, oh no, this could work. I'll be fine here. This looks good.
I got a taste of what the culture was like, even being remote.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like without having to go into the office, because my boss creates such a lighthearted, fun. He brings a lot of humor and personality to meetings, and he always encourages me to do the same. So, like, not having a very frazzled or stressed out boss was really encouraging to me. He lets me do my work, and obviously he checks in, but he's not like hovering over me. He's not like, oh, did you see this email? Did you respond yet? He's not like doing anything like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What would you say are...
And I was like, oh, okay, this is healthy. I can do this. I can do this. I can move out there. I can see what's up.
Did you see that in the moment, or did you like get off work one day and you were looking out the window and you were like, it's not bad. It's not bad.
The funny thing is I probably was looking out the window because that's how I tend. I'm very dramatic and tend to look out the window like that. Yeah, like one of my good girlfriends is a witness to me like leaving New York and me literally staring out the window like, oh, this is happening. But she would come home from work and I still hadn't backed anything at all because I was like looking out the window, processing. But basically, I created a pros and cons list.
Okay.
And
tell me the importance of that list.
I needed to see my thoughts on paper, so. Yes, my heart is definitely in DC. It's like heart versus logic. But coming after a streak of mixy jobs and, like being laid off and all of that.
Finding consistency.
I wanted consistency. I needed a sense of consistency and stability in my world. And Brooks was able to provide that to me at the expense of moving across the country. And I was like, I don't got no kids. I don't got no man. I don't have any of that right now.
Realistic.
So why not give this a go? But on the other side of that list was like, I'm going to miss my community. I'm going to miss being adjacent to like quickly popping in and supporting someone's like art show or what have you. I had a great apartment on 16th Street that I was paying super cheap rent for. That was amazing. Like I felt like the Black Carrie Bradshaw writing articles for my 16th Street studio type of thing. So that was on one list. And I was just like, when else in life am I going to get this type of opportunity to expand my world in this way? Even if I hate it, at least I won't have a sense of regret 10 years from now of like, oh, I should have like taken that opportunity and saw what Seattle is like, saw what that side of the world is like, because my whole world has been on the East Coast. I went to school in Philly, lived in New York, came back to DC.
So I haven't. It's different on the West Coast.
It's different.
Yeah.
It's different, to me, melanin over mountains, but but the mountains are good sometimes. Being by the water is nice, does something for your mental health, being able to like run by a body of water after work, look out and see the mountains. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
For sure. It's very calming and grounding. So, yeah.
Would you say, has it been particular to build a new community for yourself on the West Coast?
Yes.
Okay.
It's been challenging, but it's happened. It's happened organically, kind of.
Yeah.
So even before I moved to Seattle, my friend Ish, he, like I'd followed him on Instagram. We were like DMing each other for a bit and found out our birthdays are a day apart from each other and immediately like FaceTimed each other.
What month are you in the fireside lineup of things?
I'm December, December 1st. Yeah.
That's 17th.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he hit me up and we like FaceTime. We were like, you know, getting to know each other for a few months and whatnot. And then he like recommended various neighborhoods, and like when I would go out there for various work things, he would connect me with people.
Yeah.
So out of those connections, I like was invited into, you know, community that doesn't necessarily all look like me, but it's a loving and embracing community.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's not cold.
It's not cold. It's a warm spot in a cold city. Yeah.
All right. So when it comes to Brooks, tell me, what does that company do exactly? Like, what are they looking to accomplish?
Yeah. So it's a global running company. That's our specialty. Running
So then
shoes.
about the exercise of running?
Yes, the exercise of running.
Okay.
We make the best running shoe
In the world.
in the world.
Okay.
Period. So a lot of athletes are wearing Brooks. We are we're trying to skew to a younger demographic right now. Brooks is going through a overall like brand rebranding.
Are these shoes that I need to look into? Because you see
Absolutely.
what I got going on over
Yes.
here.
Yes. No. We gotta,
Yeah.
you know, I love a check. I love the check. Absolutely. For the people.
Yeah.
But Brooks are a great supportive workout running shoe as well. So
How's the styling of the shoe?
pretty conservative.
Okay, so it's more on the performance then.
It's a performance running shoe for sure. So typically we have skewed to a older demographic, but right now we're trying to move that down drastically to like 18 to 35-year-olds.
But you guys need a bright future.
Yes,
Yeah.
we need a brighter future.
Yes.
So
They spend more money.
yeah.
Yeah.
So we're working on that right now. Like we're looking at everything from illustrations, how we use video, color, all of those things.
Okay. Where do you place in the newer regime of where Brooks is going?
Like what
Like
do I
job-wise?
Yeah. So I'm a creative project manager. So I work on like campaigns right now. I'm managing our holiday work. So our holiday campaign from ideation to completion, I do a lot of like scoping of timelines and resourcing of designers and copywriters and making sure that briefs make sense before they come to us to kick off and that sort of thing.
Would you say, how important is ideation to the process of a company's direction?
It's important to make sure every voice is in that ideation process and that it all doesn't just look the same.
Okay.
And if it all looks the same, I would like people to be checking themselves, because are you churning out a new idea if you have the same people in the room making up, you know, new ideas? Are they honestly new ideas?
New ideas versus the echo chamber.
Are they disruptive ideas? Or are you just creating more of the same?
Yeah.
So it's important to have more than just, you know, white men who all feel good drinking a beer together in a room, making up, you know,
Yeah.
the future of a company. It's important to have, you know, people who don't look like you in that space too.
Yeah, nah, that's it. That's all I got to ask. I'm leaving here. I know we're trying to keep it 10 now. It should be like 1:30 if I'm not mistaken or something like that. So where can the people find you?
So
Or do you want to be found? Because sometimes people don't want to be found.
Yes,
You got
find
some
me.
questions.
Find me,
Some folks come on here and you're like, I don't want to be found. I got things to do. I'm like, hey, that's cool. That's cool.
No, on Instagram, I'm Macaroni Fro. So yeah. And then you can check out my writing on my website, which is just my name.com. So,
okay.
First and last name, Priscilla Ward.
What's one piece of advice you would give to new writers coming into this generation? Oh, it's not literature. Let's say media.
I would say read a diversity of authors. It's very important just to be like reading and consuming both, books as well as various articles, editors, also, watching various forms of media. So keeping up with what's going on TikTok and YouTube and new podcasts and that sort of thing. Just like consuming and then take your time. Like it's a process. It's a process. So don't get discouraged if you get that rejection, Have friends read over your work or someone in your corner read it over so you can have a different perspective of your voice as well and things that you might consider fine-tuning.
What does it mean to you to have a voice?
So, I tend to be a bit more introverted and a quieter individual. So my words on paper are my loudest expression. And that's where I feel most powerful.
You're a good writer.
Oh, thank you.
I read a couple articles. I was like, this is so much better than I would write.
Thank you.